Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 153rd Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will revisit a topic we discussed last December, immigration. Today's discussion will deal with the evolution of immigration rules over the years and how we should go forward. Our panel, beginning on my left, is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services. On his left is Tom Finley, retired VP at hired vice president at Rubbermaid Incorporated. On his left is Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, senior research chemist and retired senior research chemist. I'll get this right yet. And on his left is Patty Haskins. I stopped drinking a long time ago. I really did.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, it could be. Anyway, Patty is a retired math teacher and current member of the Wadsworth City Council. Bryan, in the beginning of eligibility requirements in 1790, race and ethnicity played a big role. But by 1875, the race requirement for the most part was eliminated, and the key restrictions were against criminals, people with contagious diseases, polygamists, anarchists, beggars, and those who imported prostitutes. Not the prostitutes, just those who imported them. What kind of restrictions, if any, do you think, would you support today?
Well, I think there needs to be some guidelines as to the individuals that we let into the country. We've seen other countries dump criminals on our borders. I think there needs to be a pretty, vigorous vetting of individuals that come here through a variety of ways. I think currently we do have a variety of systems in place that sort of look at individuals' backgrounds. They look at their educational backgrounds. There's a way to get green cards and things of that nature. So I think there has to be some standard in place for letting people into the country. It's unfortunate that we've politicized this effort because in the past, both sides, Republicans and Democrats, could agree upon particular policy when it comes to immigration. And we've had this issue for quite some time. This is not a Trump problem that's been created. We've had immigration issues over the years. We just haven't had, I guess, the political will to solve them. I think there needs to be a pathway for people that are here, that have been here in the country. I don't believe the current law that's in place that basically tells people they have to leave the country and then wait in their, in the country that they came from for the State Department or immigration to get around to them. So I think there needs to be a pathway for individuals that are here that's workable. In some of your notes you mentioned about military service. I firmly believe there should be a component that recognizes individuals that serve in the military or have been serving in public service, that they get some sort of credit for that. But I'm not for sort of an open border, a porous border at all. There's no other country that has open borders. There's currently a ship, I think it's anchored off the coast of Italy, that has 200 and some odd refugees. There's not a country over there that wants them, even though there's, I believe, a Hollywood movie star that's been helicoptered out there and has sort of taken up their cause. Italy doesn't want them. Spain doesn't want them.
Excuse me, where are they from?
I don't know if they're Somalis, but they are anchored off the coast of Italy, and it's been sort of in the news and out of the news recently. But no other country has open borders. And the experience that I've had with this, two of my children served missions for our church, one in Spain and one in Germany. And every time my daughter went to the post office to pick up a package, she was required to show her papers. And that was sort of the checkpoint and they quizzed her as far as if her papers were in order, how long she was going to be in the country. My son was stopped multiple times in Spain to check his papers. Now, obviously, you know, at 6'2", 250 some odd pounds, he sticks out like a sore thumb in Spain because those people are kind of small. But he was stopped repeatedly, and I don't consider it harassment or anything like that, but they checked his papers. And they did that on a regular basis for people. You know, those countries have high populations of refugees and immigrants, and they do it on a regular basis, and there's nobody screaming about that. So I think there's got to be a solution that both sides can agree upon that recognize people that have come here, that are good citizens, they're just not legal citizens of our country.
I forget the name of the name given to the children of illegal immigrants that were brought here as children that are now adults. DACAs.
Yeah.
Are you in favor of a path to citizenship for DACA?
Sure.
Are you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Just wanted to straighten that out.
Yeah.
Thomas, what are your thoughts?
I told you this was probably the most difficult one to get arms around. And I went to one of my favorite resources in Stephen Covey. And specifically, I looked at his chapter on paradigms. And there it was. It says, the way we see the problem is the problem. And I would suggest that with Congress, that has been a problem from the word get-go and still is today. And consequently, paradigm shift is needed. We need one that says perhaps we need them as much as they need us, and then proceed to see what would happen. And I would think that we would then establish a framework that would guide the establishment of immigration laws that would sustain a 2.1% birth rate and sustain have a positive impact on the employment rate via looking at jobs in the agricultural industry, the trades, the ones we can't find people for now, and then define a set of criteria, what you said, Bryan. And I didn't see it as complicated as we could make it, but can they read and write? Doesn't necessarily mean English, but are they, that would be a beginning. Are they healthy? Are they willing to work? Are they able to learn our language, willing to learn our language? And do they have a desire to become citizens? And are they family oriented? Those would be.
It sounds like by and large, you're in favor of admitting people that can benefit us.
And vice versa. You see, it's a two-way street.
Okay.
If it's not seen that way, we get what we have now. Certainly these laws would be defined by Congress such a way that it would be a federal law and not state laws, which are conflicting terribly right now. We have competition going on and that sort of thing. So the bottom line is the integration of folks into this country would be a positive thing and not a negative thing.
Excuse me, the integration?
Integration.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, positive, not negative.
Yeah.
So that's my summary of.
Ron, I'm going to surprise you with a question. I know you probably got some comments ready to make, but I'm going to ask you to respond to this. Throughout the history of mammals, human beings and just about everything else, we move. People and elephants and so forth are constantly on the move to go to places where they improve their chances of survival and prosperity. And it's only people that draw these artificial lines and say, don't cross this line, that's our country, and you can't come in here unless you have certain qualifications. I think back to some of the old Dust Bowl movies. What's the Steinbeck?
Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath, with Henry Fonda and some others, where they're out moving from the places that made it impossible to survive because of the lack of rain. And they're moving to
came up from the savannah and ousted the Neanderthals. Well, intermarried with them.
Well, anyway,
Same reason.
throughout history, there's all this. It's only human beings that draw these lines that tell other people not to cross. What's your thinking about the natural course of things?
Well, yeah. when Europeans first came to this country, we were very badly behaved guests. Because not only did we settle any ways we wanted to, we tried our best to wipe out the native inhabitants. Still trying, but fortunately these days with less success. It is a human tendency to better ourselves. I mean, presently we've got lots of people coming out of Guatemala and the Honduras who are being persecuted down there, asking for asylum. I agree with both Bryan and Joe. You know what for most of their points, you want folks in that will benefit us. You commented, and this is true. There have been brain drains in other countries. I mean, I knew lots of Indian scientists and lots of Japanese and Korean scientists who came here and stayed here. Some were here on the perfect intention of going back and helping their own countries, but that was pretty much a minority, even in my day.
Or sending a lot of money home.
Yeah. So that's a problem. Yeah, there have to be some standards historically. I mean, we can't do what the United Kingdom did to Australia, just send all our criminals.
Well, they did the same thing to North America for a while.
Oh, for a while, yeah. And indentured servants came here on more of a sort of a more legitimate basis. That's not going to happen these days. Although I don't know, there are some people who might say we got the penal colonies going on now in the Southwest, but that's a whole other topic. So, I won't get into that.
Good. Patty, you look very thoughtful.
I think basically, as far as immigration is concerned, there's no one that really wants a totally open border where anybody can just walk through. We always have to have some sort of safety precautions to prevent those that have committed illegal acts, those that are smuggling drugs, those that are hijackers. These are the type of people we do not need in this country, nor would anybody want them, which would require then that we do have a good vetting system within our country. The movement, though, that I've seen of late is that we want to prevent those that are seeking asylum. And perhaps the definition of for what reasons you can seek asylum need to be established. Presently it has to be fear of your life. Directly someone has threatened you. But your life can be threatened also by the conditions within that country from where you come, whether it be poverty, whether it be gang violence within the streets, or the lack of ability to improve your life. Presently, moves are being made. I'm concerned because there are moves that are going to change the asylum system and actually prevent it from happening. There is a move to only accept those immigrants that have a certain educational background, that have enough money, and so forth. Your typical asylum seeker doesn't have money, doesn't perhaps have the education, but if they are able to come into this country, they will be able to obtain an education. They will be able to get a job and to work. And immigrants tend to be some of our best occupants within this country because they do want to work. They do want to support their family. I think there are some concerns and things that need to be addressed within the immigration system itself. Presently, there are 4 different organizations that have control over the immigration system, including Department of Homeland Security, the Customs and Immigration Board, and so forth. None of them have a confirmed director at this point. All 4 of them have an acting director who has only been vetted by the White House, not by anyone else, and who have not received Senate confirmation. And perhaps we need to get people in there that will have a broader outlook on choices and ways in which we can improve immigration. There are, concerns about the changes in the Flores Law, which have just been.
I'm sorry, the what?
The Flores Law. The Flores Law was the one that was cited because, among other things, it prevented children from being detained for more than 20 days, which brought about the non-tolerance of children coming in across the country in family units. And then the children were separated because they could only be kept for 20 days. Parents were sent someplace else, kept forever, and the child was saved for 20 days and then sent to someplace in the country where no one knows where they are. The move now by the president is that the limitation of 20 days is removed. Now, the way they want to state it is that they're not being detained indefinitely, they're just going to be detained until there's a court case. Well, that court case could come in a year, it could come in 2 years. So what we're presently doing is we are putting basically in prison some of the immigrants that are coming into the country. I don't see this as a movement forward. I think that instead of building a wall, we should be putting more money into having judges and those that can vet asylum seekers that are coming into this country. I mean, if that is the problem, then that is the one that we need to address. I mean, presently, we are taking immigration violators and we're putting them, or those that we feel are not asylum seekers, and we're putting them in prison, many of which are being placed in Louisiana and Mississippi. And they are using old prisons to house these people. They have very little access to immigration attorneys, and only so many are allowed. The attorneys may have to drive 2 hours just to get to them, so that these people then become detained basically indefinitely. So there's a lot we can do, I think, to still maintain a border and to prevent undesirables from coming in, but also to keep our country open as it has been in the past for those that seek asylum and those that want to build a better life for their family and who could become productive citizens within this country.
By and large, the immigrants that are coming into this country, would you consider them assets or liabilities?
Assets. Assets.
How about you, Ron?
Yes, really. Thinking of the agricultural industry, for example, and things like meatpacking, if all the immigrants left, we'd starve to death.
Well, you know, another thing that I saw that,
Dairy farms, too.
that there
Dairy
is
farms.
something like $14 billion that is paid into Social Security yearly by undocumented immigrants. They're paying into Social Security.
Where it is promptly stolen by Congress and used for other
Well,
things.
I don't know about that.
Another story.
It's being paid into Social Security. These people are never going to collect it because it's a fake Social Security number. But you pull that out of the system, you know, that's maybe an unintended consequence. I mean, that's kind of a catch-22 situation, I think. So.
You know, I think one of the points that I try to make when discussing this is that there is a legal channel to come into this country. There is a group from Nepal over in the North Hill area. I know some of them. They go to our church. Their stories of coming to this country, of seeking asylum legally, going through the process. It is longer. There are very few of the stories of those people from Nepal and Hmong people and Cambodians of coming here illegally. And what we're faced with on our southern border are people coming here, showing up at our doorstep basically and saying, I need asylum. Our system is not set up that way.
But
You
that
have
is
to
legal
come,
to do.
You have to you have to come to a port of entry.
And that is legal to do.
But you don't swim across the river and show up in El Paso or wherever and get rounded up by DHS or Customs and say, I'm here for asylum. We don't have. They're not doing it the right way. If they want to come to the country and claim asylum, they better be schooled down in these other countries where organized crime and cartels are using these people for a variety of reasons. They need to be schooled that you need to go to this particular area, and I'm not sure exactly where those points of entry are, but they know that if you're going to claim asylum, you need to go to that port of entry. You don't climb over the fence. You don't swim across the river. You don't do it illegally. And I think there needs to be a distinction here. There are people that come here legally. What about those people? What about those people that put themselves out to the system? The Hmong people, the Nepal people that were in refugee camps for years.
Where?
Waiting.
Here in the U.S.?
No, not in this country. In their own country. The UN set up refugee camps. They set up processes. Some spent 5-6 years in a refugee camp.
They're being processed for entry into the United States
In their
in their
country
home
of origin. Exactly. Through UN and through a variety of international organizations. I mean, we could have on the folks over in Akron. I think it's the international, there's a group there that work with these people. They have to find jobs within 90 days. They have to be able to, they start learning the language and all that kind of stuff. So there is a legal process.
It sounds like a good system.
And it does work. It does work. It's just that we can't say to people that show up on our doorstep, come on in, you want asylum? We're not equipped for that, and that's why the system is being overrun
Well,
with that.
Somebody
they
mentioned.
are being schooled.
Yeah.
They are being schooled on how to get into the country illegally.
Right.
They are paying for that, actually.
Yeah.
So what
Very
you're saying
dangerous.
is absolutely right, but what we have is a whole different situation of countries not being responsible for that. The other thing is those countries have also defined some of these people as criminals when it's that country's laws that are really subject to.
It's illegal to want to leave.
Yeah, it's illegal to want to leave, and the
But
list
somebody
goes
mentioned
on.
about the idea of we need more judges, more attorneys, and so forth, and it's incredibly difficult. Our former minister had spent time in seminary, and it took about 2 to 3 years to get a green card, with pro bono help by one of our church members who's an attorney, and she's from Canada. She's since going back, but just to get a green card, just to work here.
By the way,
Legitimate,
relating this to a human problem, I feed duck and geese every morning, and I watch this whole system at work on a very minor scale as I'm feeding, where they establish boundaries, the leaders of the group, not to let the ducks in or the geese. And it's incredible to watch this every morning. It is indeed a border problem, and it's not limited to people.
I never thought I'd hear somebody say we don't have enough lawyers.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about legal immigrants that are here, though, and they have green cards, and the latest movement is to, if they don't make enough money, we're not going to continue granting it. So there are people that are doing it the right way, doing it legally, and that is one of the new executive orders that's gone out, that we want to get rid of those that are not earning quickly enough. And as far, Bryan, when you talk about the ports of entry, that is the way to do it, and that's where most of the asylum seekers are coming now, are into the ports of entry. And what's happened is that our ports of entry, they're not allowing them in. They're preventing them.
They
They're
gotta
telling
stay in
them,
Mexico or
you've got to
whatever.
wait. That third, what is it? Third country or next country, whatever rule that they have, that they can't seek asylum in the United States. So.
Here's my question. Listening to different politicians talk about this issue, does it boil down to a choice between compassion and self-interest on the part of Americans?
That's always a
It's tough, yeah.
balanced thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really? Because talking about, for example,
But we are talking about those two issues.
yeah. There's something. For example, people are being persecuted and arrested for leaving water in the desert for the illegals that are coming across. Now that's a human issue.
Are they being arrested for that?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
there's a person. No, it hit the news here several weeks ago. And he's fighting it, but he was leaving water and picked him up and arrested him.
Well, it just seems like a totally decent thing to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But-
That happens.
I guess when you look at the issue, there are solutions to this. We just have to take the politics out of it. And the compassion for these people, that are coming. They're walking thousands of miles to get here. There has to be a better way. And the point that I try to make is that these laws have been in place for years. It wasn't just recently that someone pulled them out of the air and is trying to, kick people out of the country or anything. 8 years of Mr. Obama, he deported more people than any other presidency. And that's from a website, Axios, which I believe is fairly liberal. In each of his years, it only tailed off towards the end of his administration. But we're trying to, and what really disturbs me is when we try to vilify the members of the Border Patrol, the folks that are working for the government. They have rules and regulations that Congress passes, and they're enforcing those. So there is a solution to it. We just need to get the politics out of it and address the issues and solve it once and for all.
The last few seconds. Go ahead, Tom.
I don't want to make it oversimplified, but I think there is a paradigm shift needed, and that is we need them. They need us.
They are
that
an
would
asset.
be a tremendous shift, and it would influence positively the laws that we established.
Well, I was going to ask the question: what happens to the other countries they're leaving when we take only their best people? What chance do they have of fixing their problems? But we don't have time to talk about that.
And
Thank
it's
you
not
very
our
much.
problem.
Not our problem. Yeah, I think maybe.